Have you ever kept a secret? A real one. Something so heavy it presses down on you, even in your sleep. A secret that, if it ever got out, would shatter everything you know. Now, imagine that secret is a crime. You planned it perfectly. You executed it flawlessly. You walked away clean, without a single soul knowing what you did. The police have no leads, no witnesses, no evidence. You are completely, utterly free. You are safe. But then, something inside you starts to itch. It's a tiny, nagging feeling at first, a whisper in the back of your mind. What good is being clever if no one knows it? What's the point of pulling off the impossible if you can't get the credit? It's no longer a burden to be hidden, but a trophy to be displayed. You start to crave the look of shock, of awe, of fear in someone else's eyes. You want them to see you. It's a fundamental flaw in the human psyche, a crack in the armor of even the most careful criminal. It is the overwhelming self-destructive need to be known, but tonight we're not talking about the quiet ones. We are pulling back the curtain on the boasters, the braggarts, the ones who held a winning hand and couldn't resist showing their cards. People who had everything to lose and threw it all away for a few words of misplaced pride. The darkness has stories to tell, and they all begin with a whisper. Every story we will explore tonight follows a simple, devastating pattern. We call it the hook-confess-consequence pattern. It begins with the hook, the crime itself. A theft, a robbery, a sophisticated fraud. The criminal plans it, executes it, and then vanishes, leaving law enforcement with nothing but questions and a cold trail. Next comes the most crucial, most human part of the pattern, the confession. No, this is a confession born from ego. It's a boast to a friend over a drink. It's a picture posted online. It's a careless comment in a forum. It is the moment the secret becomes too big to hold, and the perpetrator's pride overflows. Finally, we arrive at the consequence. This is the inevitable fallout. The boast becomes a breadcrumb, a digital footprint. The online post is screenshotted. The overheard conversation is reported. The very act of bragging, meant to inflate the criminal's ego, becomes the evidence that brings their world crashing down around them. Stay with us. You won't believe what they said. Our first story begins on a cool, moonless night in suburban Ohio. It was October 14th, 2022. A series of seemingly minor, yet deeply unsettling car break-ins occurred. The thief was swift and methodical. They simply took advantage of unlocked doors, a common oversight in a community where people felt safe. Loose change, sunglasses, a GPS unit, a brand new set of expensive golf clubs, a laptop, a tablet. When morning came, a wave of violation rippled through the neighborhood. The crimes were too small for a major investigation, the evidence non-existent. No fingerprints, no witnesses. Security cameras captured fleeting shadows, swaying trees. For the thief, it was a clean sweep. He had every reason to believe he had gotten away with it. But this thief was a young man named Kevin Butler. And for Kevin, the thrill wasn't just in the acquisition, it was in the feeling of being smarter than everyone else. He was about to trade his anonymity for a few moments of fleeting digital glory. The desire to be seen was a ticking clock, and it was about to go off. A few days after the break-ins on October 17th, he took a picture. It was a carefully arranged photograph of the stolen goods. He posted it to his private social media account. The caption was simple, yet dripping with arrogance. Just another successful shopping trip. By Kraupent Scout, Sazan. The likes and comments started to trickle in. Nice haul, bro. Where'd you get that bag? Each notification was a small hit of dopamine, a confirmation of his cleverness. He posted a selfie wearing the expensive stolen sunglasses. He even took a picture of the stolen laptop, captioning it, "Futures so bright." He was building a digital trophy room brick by brick, post by post. When someone asked how he could afford the new golf clubs, he simply replied with a winking emoji and the words, "Gotta know the right spots." He was playing a dangerous game, dangling his crime in front of everyone, convinced that no one was smart enough to see it for what it was. What he failed to understand was that the internet is not a void, it is a permanent record. He thought he was performing for a small private audience of friends, but he was about to discover that in the digital age, there is no such thing as a private stage. One of the victims, a teenage girl whose tablet had been taken, was scrolling through her own social media feed, when she saw a post from a friend of a friend. It was Kevin Butler. It was the picture of the golf clubs, her father's golf clubs, the specific brand, the distinctive red and black bag. It was unmistakable. Her heart pounded in her chest. She scrolled frantically through Kevin's profile, her disbelief turning to cold, hard certainty. There it was, the laptop. There it was, the GPS unit. There it was. Item after item from the list her neighbors had compiled. The girl took screenshots of everything, her fingers trembling slightly as she captured the evidence. She immediately shared the screenshots in the neighborhood group. The reaction was instantaneous and explosive. A dozen different people confirmed that items in Kevin's photos belonged to them. They had their thief. The community, feeling empowered and unified, organized their findings. They were no longer just victims, they were investigators, and they had built a damning case. The information was forwarded to the local police department. For the officers who had been stuck with a cold case, it was like being handed a confession on a silver platter. They had gone from having 0 leads to having the suspect's name, the suspect's face, and a gallery of evidence provided by the suspect himself. Detective Miller began the methodical work of turning digital clues into a prosecutable case. He obtained a warrant for Kevin Butler's social media data. It gave him the metadata. He could see the exact time, and, most importantly, the location where each photo was taken. GPS data pinged directly to Kevin's apartment address. Detective Miller delved into Kevin's private messages. The boasting was even more explicit. Easy score last night. People should really lock their cars, LOL. He had used the stolen laptop to access his own social media accounts. Forensics teams would later match the laptop's unique hardware ID to the login sessions on his profiles. On the morning of October 24th, just 10 days after the initial crimes, Kevin Butler was asleep. His sleep was interrupted by a loud, firm knock. Peeking through the peephole, his blood ran cold. He saw the uniforms. He saw the search warrant. The game was over. Reality had arrived. The apartment matched his social feed. Officers cataloged evidence while Kevin sat stunned on the couch. He wore a pale, slack-faced look. In the interrogation room, this was not the untouchable internet figure. This was a scared young man who crumbled. He confessed within the hour. 2 years probation, full restitution to victims, 200 hours of community service. His small lie became a public downfall. He had almost gotten away with it, but he couldn't resist telling everyone. Our second story takes us away from the quiet glow of screens and into the harsh physical world. We move to the gritty streets of North Philadelphia. A small, family-owned convenience store, a cornerstone of its neighborhood for 2 decades, became a scene of terror. 2 masked men burst through the door just before closing time. One brandished a handgun. The other carried a baseball bat. He herded the elderly shop owner and his wife into a corner. The air was thick with fear. The robbers were efficient and ruthless. The second man vaulted over the counter, emptied the cash register, stuffing wads of bills into a duffel bag. The entire ordeal lasted less than 3 minutes. And then, as quickly as they had appeared, they were gone. When the police arrived, they found a scene of disarray and 2 deeply shaken victims. The couple could offer little. One victim remembered a small tear in the left glove of the man with the gun, revealing a tiny flash of a tattoo on his wrist. It was a minuscule detail. With no fingerprints, no clear surveillance footage, the trail went cold almost immediately. For one perpetrator, Marcus Kane, the feeling was pure adrenaline. They split the cash and the goods, agreed to lay low. For Marcus Kane, the silence of a clean getaway should have been his ally, but the echo of his own violence was about to be drowned out by the sound of his own voice. Just a few hours after the robbery, he walked into a dimly lit, crowded tavern just a few miles from the crime scene. He ordered a beer. He ordered another. Cheap liquor loosened his tongue and inflated his ego. He recounted the robbery with chilling, theatrical pride. He described the old man's face, mimicking the owner's terror. He boasted about how easy it was. He bragged they had them shaking like leaves. He pulled a thick stack of lottery tickets and fanned them out on the sticky table. "A little bonus," he slurred. "Courtesy of the corner store." Watching from behind the bar was a man named Frank. He was the owner of the Rusty Mug. He knew the difference between drunken nonsense and something darker. He had heard about the robbery on the late-night news report. Those details were lining up with the news anchor's solemn report, but it was a physical detail that solidified his suspicion. On the back of Marcus's wrist was a small, distinctive spiderweb tattoo. Frank knew he couldn't confront Marcus directly. Instead, he did something simple and smart. He was creating a witness statement in real time. The next morning, with a clear head, Frank made a phone call. He calmly relayed everything he had seen and heard. He gave them Marcus Kane's name. He had turned a drunken barroom brag into a concrete, actionable lead. The trap was about to be set. Armed with the bartender's detailed tip, detectives didn't waste any time. They pulled Marcus Kane's record. Within 48 hours, police had probable cause to bring Marcus Kane in. They picked him up at his apartment, in the stark, cold interrogation room. Marcus denied everything. He stuck to his story. Calm, collected. "That's a good story, Marcus," he said calmly. "But we have a witness who says you were at the Rusty Mug, said you were telling everyone about how you robbed the corner store. The witness also told us about the tattoo on your left wrist, a little spiderweb, just like the one the victim saw through the tear in your glove." Marcus looked at his wrist as if seeing it for the first time. Cornered by his own words, he broke and confessed. His detailed confession led directly to the arrest of his accomplice and the recovery of nearly all the stolen money. The judge, citing the violent nature of the crime, was not lenient. Marcus was sentenced to 12 years in state prison. He had the perfect crime in his grasp and traded it all for a round of drinks and a moment of applause. He was a ghost who had successfully vanished into the night. But then, he walked into a bar and decided to tell everyone his name, and that decision cost him everything. Our final story pulls us deep into the digital abyss, a world of code, avatars, and anonymity. The architect of this scheme was a man known online only by his username, Cthulhu. In the real world, he was Alexei Bilyuchenko. He was one of the masterminds behind the infamous cryptocurrency exchange BTCE, a shadowy digital bank, the go-to platform for criminals worldwide. It was an anonymous haven for hackers, drug traffickers, ransomware syndicates. Billions of dollars in Bitcoin flowed through its digital vaults. For years, agencies like the FBI and Europol tried to penetrate its defenses, but the architects were ghosts. Alexei, as Cthulhu, was the technical genius. He was living a life of unimaginable wealth, all of it digital, all of it untraceable. They were specters on the web. They had every reason to believe they were untouchable. But even a ghost can have an ego. For Alexei, the silence of his secret kingdom was not enough. He was a god in his own machine, but he craved worshippers. He couldn't boast about running BTCE directly, so he created a carefully constructed alter ego. As Cthulhu, he became a prominent, respected figure. He would dispense advice on digital security. He would comment on the vulnerabilities of other platforms, with an almost academic level of expertise. Each like, each reply that praised his insight, was a small validation. It was a safer way to boast. He was hiding in plain sight, his pride masked by a veneer of helpfulness and intellectual superiority. For years, a dedicated team had been chasing the ghosts of BTCE. They were looking for a Cthulhu. The breakthrough came from a tiny, almost insignificant slip-up. It was a single post on a Bitcoin forum. The respected moderator, Cthulhu, replied. His reply was not a generic piece of advice. It was specific. It was too specific. To the investigators, it was a seismic event. He wasn't guessing. He was speaking as an administrator. He likely deleted the comment moments later, realizing his mistake. But it was too late. The internet never forgets. The ghost in the machine had just revealed, for a fraction of a second, that he had hands. Now all they had to do was follow that thread. With their first concrete link, the International Task Force focused all its resources on the Cthulhu account. They found a chilling correlation. Almost every time someone logged into the BTCE servers, the user Cthulhu would become active on a forum moments later. The final piece fell into place. In one of his earliest posts, he had forgotten to activate his VPN. He had logged in from his personal home IP address. That single IP address was traced back to an apartment in Moscow. The registered name was Alexei Bilyuchenko. The ghost now had a name. The end came in July 2017. Alexei Bilyuchenko had gone on the run. But the investigators were no longer chasing a ghost. They tracked his digital footprint to that very hotel. As he sat there, basking in the Greek sun, a team of police officers moved in. The next, he was in handcuffs, his laptop seized as evidence. the US Department of Justice indicted Alexei Bilyuchenko on charges of money laundering over $4 billion in the process. He had almost gotten away with one of the biggest cybercrimes in history, but in the end, his need for an audience was the one vulnerability he couldn't patch. We began our journey in the dark, with the tantalizing idea of a perfect crime, a secret held so tightly that it becomes a part of you. But as we have seen, the digital trophy room of a petty thief, the drunken proclamations of a violent robber, the subtle intellectual flex of a cybercrime kingpin. The silence is often the first thing to break. The human element, pride, ego, a desperate need to be seen, proves time and again to be the fatal flaw. It transforms the secret from a shield into a trophy. And a trophy is worthless if it's kept in a locked box. What they fail to grasp is that once a boast is released, it is no longer theirs. It can be screenshotted, overheard, remembered, and reported. The evidence that convicts them is not a fingerprint on a weapon. It is their own words, their own pictures, their own pride. Think back to that secret you have, the one that presses down on you in your sleep. Feel its weight. Now, listen to the silence that surrounds it. That is the sound of safety. That is the sound of freedom. For the criminal, it is the sound of getting away with it. But it is a sound that so many find impossible to endure. They are undone not by a fatal clue or a clever trap, but by a fatal need. The need to be known. They almost remained ghosts, but they just had to talk. And in the end, that single simple act was everything.